Scariest paranormal encounter while at work? I'd say that the most frightening experience that I've ever had while investigating the paranormal for the show that we produce, which is our work, was when I handled a private case for a family in South Dakota who had been living under attack from some sort of violent energy. It had pinned their young daughter down in her bed, pushed the mother down the stairs, and supposedly even possessed members of the family. This was a very extreme case. I remember it being very hard to focus on filming the work side of the investigation when this one specific event happened. We were out in the garage with the family, doing a Ouija board. They claimed that their passion for using the Ouija board had invited this evil into their home, and all of a sudden, after an hour of sitting there with no energy in the room whatsoever, everyone's hair began to stand on end. It was a noticeable shift, and suddenly the grandfather in the family sits straight up in his chair, stares out into the darkness beyond the open garage door towards the forest. They lived on a farm way out in the country, so we were very isolated, and starts saying, "They're coming. I feel them. They're walking towards us. They're coming." It was almost as if he went into a total trance, staring off into the distance and repeating this. Normally I would just brush something like this off and continue filming, but instantly, the 3 German shepherds that the family owned started going berserk, barking at the darkness. I'm talking full snarl, really anxious. They could tell that something was over there, walking towards the garage from the forest. At this point, I'm freaking out. The energy was really strong in the room. We had the grandfather in an almost trance-like state and the dogs losing their minds. I dropped the camera to the floor and just stared forward into the abyss, trying to see if I could catch a glimpse of whatever everyone was seeing. Suddenly, there is a very loud bang from inside of the house. No one was inside, we were all in the garage, and all 3 of the dogs take off running towards the front door, barking and going absolutely crazy. The grandfather looks at me and goes, "They're home, let's go inside." That episode was really hard to film, as we had fights between family members, scheduling mishaps, equipment randomly die, like cameras, which we really needed, so to have this happen during the filming was something absolutely crazy. Definitely made it hard for me to do my job and just get my shots. I was too focused on what was happening in front of me. Sorry for the length, and I know that this isn't a typical work story, but this is my work, and this was one experience where the paranormal experiences made it hard to do my job. I used to work overnight at a gas station in a small country town that was mainly plantations before modern-day society, can't think of the word to describe this right now, took over. We had cold boxes, the drink fridges, that wrapped around the back of the store with 2 entry points, one from the stock room and the other entrance near the public bathrooms. One night I was unloading the truck into the back freezer that was located in the cold box. I walked out of the freezer because I can't do extreme cold for too long, or I'll get a migraine. Mind you, the company switched to automatic lights to save money, so if no movement is detected, they'll turn off. It was about 2:30 a.m., one of our dead hours since our morning crowd didn't come in until 4:30 a.m., so I know no one was opening the outside doors to the cold box to get a drink. Anyway, I step out of the freezer and can see no one is outside the doors when all of a sudden, I start to hear whistling, like something Tiny Tim would have in his songs, think Tiptoe Through the Tulips. I immediately think my co-workers are playing with me, so I call over the radio and tell them to knock it off because it was weird. As I'm finishing this message, one by one, the automatic lights come on as if someone was walking towards me, and then the lights go out completely. Since I was in the freezer and not the cold box, the lights turned off since there was no movement detected. There's only one main switch for the lights in the cold box to stay on, and it's on the wall near the door to go back through the stock room, so you can turn it on/off before exiting, since we weren't supposed to use the exit near the bathrooms unless for emergencies. I was the only one in the cold box, so there was no way someone hit the lights. At this point, I'm freaked the fleab out and run out of the cold box, through the stock room, past the coffee pots and into the deli, where I find all my coworkers hanging out chit-chatting what we did when everything was basically done and waiting for people to come in, our break time. They look at me and they have a "WTF is wrong with you" look on their faces. I immediately start saying that they shouldn't kid around like that because they know I have a heart issue and too much can cause me to have a heart attack. At this point they're like, "What are you talking about, OP? We've been standing here for the last 10 minutes, it's break time, we told you." I never heard anything on the radio, so I asked if they heard me tell them to stop whistling into the cold box. They all shook their heads. We stood there in silence for about 30 seconds until we heard the bell for the door opening. No one came in, but we brushed it off as the wind because sometimes it can make the doors move and the bell to go off. Still not talking, we just look around because we got a weird feeling. We all notice the automatic lights in the cold box go on the same way it did earlier, go completely off immediately. I start inching my way to the main office to watch the cameras, thinking that maybe someone somehow got into the store, and as soon as I turn away, one of the coffee pots was slammed to the ground from where it was getting brewed. They aren't the little glass ones, but big heavy thermal type pots that hold 24 cups of coffee, so there's no way it just slipped. My coworkers just stopped and said something about Fred. I have no idea who or what Fred is, I was pretty new so I asked about it. They started laughing. I'm confused as hell now, so I ask again. My buddy, I've known since 4th grade, finally answered and said it was the store's ghost named Fred, and he does this to all new people, and proceeded to take his phone out to show me videos of previous encounters recorded from the security camera monitors. Some of the clips you can see a shadow-like figure wander around from time to time. Back when I was about 9 to 10 years old, my parents owned a janitorial business and my 2 younger brothers, and I would accompany them during the nights that they had to clean their accounts. There was this old business type of building where a senator used to work out of. It was called the Century Building, due to it being over 100 years old. It used to be the only hospital in the town I'm from. There were a lot of strange occurrences, but this takes the cake. There was still the old morgue in the basement area that always gave us a very disturbed feeling when we had to go down there, as there was a bathroom that needed cleaning and some weird little office area. It also had a very strange stench sometimes and would be freezing cold, even during the summertime. One night on the 2nd or 3rd floor, my dad had been vacuuming a hallway and he looked up and saw a little girl in an old-style-looking, worn, green dress. He said she must have been at least 4 or 5 years old. He stopped his vacuum to ask her how she got there, if she was lost, where her mommy was, etc. She just blankly stared back without saying a word to my dad. He went to go grab my mom and us kids to have her help figure out what to do with this girl, and when he came back to get her, she was completely gone. We all searched the building, but there wasn't a trace of her, and there was no possible way this young little thing could have got in the place. My mom and dad always locked the doors to whatever establishment they were cleaning, as there was a risk involved for them if someone were to just walk in and burglarize the place, so they were instructed to do so. The fact that her outfit was so old and tattered looking gave us the spooks. She just gave off an odd vibe altogether according to my dad. I was working alone in a recently reopened hotel, formerly the Astro World Hotel, setting up a video and AV system for a series of live lectures that were to be held in a large meeting room for the next 8 weeks. I was alone in the wing of the hotel, it was New Year's Day. There was no heat and I could see my breath form when I exhaled. I was feeling a bit creeped out, like I was not alone. I kept thinking of Stephen King's The Shining. There was a side door that led to the back service hallway. The doorknob started to rattle a bit and then slowly turned, and the door slowly creaked open. I said, "Hello, who is there?" But there was no answer. The door swung open all of the way. I expected a hotel employee to walk in, but there was no one there. I went to the door and looked down the hallway, which was empty. Suddenly a horrible odor of rot or something dead filled the room. I stepped back and covered my nose. The door then slowly closed on its own while I was standing right there. The air was cold and still, there was no draft. The smell quickly went away. The next day, the door opened on its own during the beginning of the actual lecture. This time, one of the students started to yell, "No, no, no," jumped from his chair and bolted from the room. He later explained he heard voices, then the door creaked open, and there was a dead corpse or a demon standing in the doorway leering at him. He no longer attended class and had to take the home study course. I hated the night video playback lectures. We had about 70 students and the door would open and close at least once every evening. A few years ago I was stationed in Korea. Our barracks had been built post-Korean War and had a lot of history. I recall coming off of a late-night guard shift and taking a shower, only to hear the shower next to me turn on. I playfully made some inappropriate joke and got no response, so I stuck my head out of the stall to see who was there. Empty stall with the shower on full blast. I knew a lot of guys who had the same thing happen to them. However, the hardest to explain instance was on a late night pulling CQ duty, sitting at a desk in the main lobby. The building was a large 3-story rectangle-shaped building. I was sitting in the middle at a desk with hallways on both sides. Out of the corner of my eye, I could see at the end of the east hallway what looked like someone leaning out of their room staring at me, and as I turned, they ducked back into their room. I got up and let my squad leader know I was going to check it out. As I got closer, I realized it wasn't anyone's room, but was a storage room where we kept gear and ceremony uniforms, so I pulled out my flashlight and tried to open the door, but it was locked. I called my squad leader over and asked him to bring our keys. I stepped out of the exit door and walked around to the room's window and shined my flashlight in. The room was pitch black, but I could see an area of the coats moving, like someone has just hidden behind them. We searched the room thoroughly, behind all of the gear, through all of the ceremony uniforms, in storage closets, nothing. Definitely some creepy vibes there.